in this video tutorial we will discuss how to create a generic schema in Talend Open Studio. So in the last video section we have seen one of the CSV file, that is this one, and we have created this CSV file and we have seen how to read it inside the Talend Open Studio. So for that, if you see, like, we have created the metadata, we have created the repository metadata in the file delimited component, and if you just drag this option, so we created the metadata. And if I can just open here the metadata, so you see I got these 8 columns which we have read. So if you haven't watched out this video, so you can just check this video in the suggested section on the top. Now what I am going to do, I am going to use the same metadata which we have created. So metadata is nothing, is basically the column names, the fields name, the data type, the primary keys, whatever things you have given, so that is known as the metadata. Okay, means information about the data. So if you wanted to use the same thing for different other components, so the main thing is, if you go with a repository metadata, so this metadata will be created in this particular section itself. So you see the metadata is created in the file delimited section itself. But if you wanted to use the same metadata for any other component, like for Excel file, for JSON file, for any other file format, so what you have to create, you have to create a generic schema. Generic means a common schema which can't be just related to only one data type. Okay, so it should not be just related to file delimited, or it should not be related to XML. So that we call it as a generic schema, and you will find out that generic schema at the last. Now how to create the generic schema? There are multiple options and there are multiple ways you can create it. So for now, if you have anything, okay, so if you see I have already created the metadata for my CSV file, so you can just right click here on the metadata, okay, and just click on copy to generic schema. So like right now you see in the generic schema part you don't have anything. So whenever you go to metadata of any file which you have already there, right click and click to copy to generic schema. So what you find it out, the same schema will be copied here. And if you see generic schema, if you double click here, so you will find out the same schema is there which has been copied. Okay, now what you can do, if you wanted to use the same thing to any other component, you can easily do that. And for example, if I just try to read the same file into an Excel sheet or any other place, so you can take it. So just you can read the file which you have already created the metadata for the parameter called t file input delimited, and you can try to save the file in Excel. So like right now you see for the Excel I haven't created anything. Okay, so I'm going to just write down the things into a t file output Excel component. So I just click here, and if you just click on this t file output Excel component, so here you see it is telling me the location where I need to save the file. So here if you see, it will also show you about the schema and everything. Okay, so like what are the different column types you have, and if you click on edit schema you don't have any value. Fine, so what you have to do at this point of time, so either you can create, if you just try to make a connection, so you see the same schema will be created here. So if you just see in the t file output Excel, whenever you have made the component, you got the same schema. Okay, but let's say what I do, I try to remove all the schema from my t file output XML, and I just try to wanted to create the same schema. And right now, so see the schema is already a built-in schema. Okay, now I just do one thing, I just select the schema and I just drop it on the component. That's it. Okay, so just select the metadata from the generic schema and just drag it and drop it on the component, and what you find it out, the same schema is being copied. And now you see the schema is of the repository part, and this is a generic schema, and this generic schema is this file name, and this is the name of your metadata. And if you click on the edit schema, you find out the same schema will be copied on the Excel sheet. So in normal terms, if you say generic schema is nothing, it's basically a schema which you can use for any component whatever you have. So you don't have to recreate the metadata in every section, so that we were creating in the repository part. Now there is one more option, like what you can do, you can just create the generic schema using the XML file. You have to go to the metadata of any file delimiter or any file XML component, whatever metadata you have created. So open it. So you see an arrow sign, and if you just click on, it will give you an option, export all the rows into a XML file. So just click here, save the file on any location. So let's say I just put REGex data metadata and just save the file. So you have created a XML file for all the metadata that you have created. Okay, now using the same XML file, I can create one more generic schema, and for that you have to go to the generic schema part. You have to right click, and if you see, it will give you an option, create a generic schema from XML. So if you have a XML file which already consists the information about the metadata, you can just select this option. You can just browse the file which you have taken as a XML, which you have created right now, and just click on open. So it will just ask you, like, do you wanted to create a new metadata, what is the name you wanted to set. So let's say I just give any name, generic REGex data, and just you can click on finish. Now you see again a metadata is being created, and this is a generic schema, and you see you got the same 8 columns. And now you can just use the same thing, you can just drag it and drop it on any component. So for any component you can set the schema, and this schema will be there on each component on which you just drag it and drop it. So generic schema in brief is basically nothing. It's a schema that you can use on any component, and it is different from the repository metadata, because in a repository metadata, whenever you create any metadata, okay, so whenever you create any metadata in the repository section, so these metadata are created in each part, like file delimited or either file positional, file XML. So in whatever format you will be reading the data, you will be getting the metadata in this component itself. But generic means a common data type or a common schema which you can define for every component. So in real life it has lot of advantages. So you can use this generic schema on multiple components, and if you make a change, the same changes will be affected on every particular component that you are using. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video on Talend Open Studio and generic schema. So kindly just like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep updated with our new videos. Keep learning. Have a great day.